So a few months ago, I was at the Boat International Explorer Yacht Summit, and I was chatting to a guy who has an amazing trawler yacht conversion, and we were chatting about East Greenland and about the conditions he might encounter there and how amazing East Greenland is. And a guy bounces up to me, and he's got an iPad in his hand, and he says, "Can I show you a picture?" And I say, "Yeah, sure, of course you can." The Explorer Yacht Summit's a kind of interesting place. You never see boring things there. So this is the picture he showed me. And he said, imagine if you had a camera on your masthead that was taking a 360-degree image every few minutes. And then that image uploaded onto a server on your boat, and you could give everybody on board a passcode, and they could get in and see the images. And once the journey was finished, they could go online and go down this magical mystery tour of the amazing adventure that they'd been on. And then he said, imagine if you could do that in infrared and in real time to your bridge console, so hands-free, you could have a complete 360 spatial perception of what's going on around you, and you could concentrate on your navigation rather than having to pan your camera. Then he said to me, so I'm just curious what it is that you do and why you're at the Explorer Yacht Summit. And I said, well, it's funny you should mention that. I'm the person driving the boat in your photo. I was the captain of Nansen Explorer. Those images were from East Greenland. And so I got to show the owner of the trawler yacht pictures of East Greenland and the kind of conditions that they might encounter. My name's Maiwenn Beadle. I'm a Master 3000. I'm an Ice Navigator Level 2, and I'm an Arctic expert. I take boats to the very, very ends of the world. This picture here is at 80 North. The ice here stretches 600 nautical miles to the pole, and it's solid ice all the way. From here, the great explorers like Rasmussen, like Cook, like Perry set off to try and conquer that great goal, the first to the North Pole. And when we were here, in between Greenland and Canada, we were, at this point in time, as far as we could tell from our AIS, the most northerly boat in the world. I know, wow, huh? It was a good moment. In 2022, I captained a boat through the Northwest Passage. We were vessel 324 to transit the passage. And to put that into perspective, on a really busy day on Mount Everest, up to 350 people can summit Mount Everest. So more people have been up Mount Everest in one single day than have ever captained a boat through the Northwest Passage. Wow. Thank you. I do hear people say these days, and a lot of comments of, oh, well, I understand the passage is a bit long, it's, the scenery is not very interesting. I also hear the comment that there's not very much ice these days, and it's not so much of a challenge. And I can tell you that that is absolutely not my experience at all. There was plenty of ice. We did go quite early in the year because we wanted to find ice. The mountains are 6,000 feet high, and they plunge straight into the icy waters. There's very little precipitation here. Hardly ever rains, very little snow. There's not much vegetation. It's a frozen, icy desert. The land slopes down until you find yourself in a moraine of gravel islands, a place where Amundsen said, I stayed up all night fretting when I should have been sleeping. He described it as hell on earth. But as you move through this amazing scenery, you begin to realize that actually You're not the only person here. You're not the first person to have been. In fact, actually, you're in someone's backyard. I was in the middle of the passage and I was working through really heavy ice. There I am, big explorer. We're on an adventure. It's an expedition. We finally got to the stage where nobody else has ever been. And past us comes a little boat, a Boston whaler, I think, Mom, Dad, a little girl. She had on a pink bunny suit, fluffy fleece, and she had bunny ears. And to me, this was as far as my comfort level was comfortable. For them, they were just on a summer picnic. It's an amazing thought, huh? And so what I do now is I organize, expedite, and take people to the most amazing places. I organize yacht voyages up into the Arctic. And I take people to see things that they never thought that they would see. Things that are so amazing that once the moment has passed, it feels like it was a dream, and you just can't imagine it. So here we are back with Nansen Explorer in East Greenland, and this is the photo from my bridge that's the same time as the slide that Sasha showed me. And this is sunset. It's actually midnight, and we're coming into Scoresby Sund. But is it sunrise or is it sunset? Because in East Greenland, at this time of year, the sun just skims along the northern horizon, from west to east. So that what we were taught when we were growing up, one of the fundamental truths that we've always understood, that the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west, this is no longer valid, like so many things in this area. This is Ittoqqortoormiut in Scoresby Sund, and we're coming in here to pick up our guests. We've got 14 scientists to pick up and a principal. But first of all, we have to work our way through the bands of storous ice that run down the side of East Greenland in the East Greenland current. Fortunately, our boat, Nansen Explorer, is an A1 ice class. And also fortunately, she's got a helicopter on the back. Because on our way in, going up to Constable Point, the ice was 9/10. And that's too heavy even for Nansen Explorer. So we had to send the helicopter to get our guests and use a lift sling to pick up the science equipment. And this is the same band of storous ice taken from the 360-degree Panoblu camera on the masthead. We're in Scoresby Sund. This is Borg Glacier in Scoresby Sund. And our scientists are ashore in the Zodiac with an ROV. They're looking at the scouring of the glacial walls in front of the glacier and the regrowth as the glacier recedes. We have a helicopter which is up near the ice cap, and they're taking samples from hot springs in the interior of Greenland. And on our bridge, we're holding station so we can do water core temperature samples and a depth core. This is my second officer, Barbara, and my first officer, Laura, and they're holding station because Nansen Explorer is a single screw vessel without dynamic positioning, and so they have to try and keep the vessel still so we can do the core sample. And the way that they've done this, or one way that they've done this, is to put the bow on a large flow of ice to keep things stable and to keep ice away from the equipment as it goes down. So as I was going through and putting this presentation together, I pulled up these amazing images, and if you look at the map, you'll see that each one of those dots is actually a full 360-degree image. And I realized what this meant was, as we had been going through, not only did I have a record of every glacier that I had had the time to pull out my camera and take a photo of, but that I had a record of every single glacier that we had passed. And every one had a time stamp a date stamp, and a location. And all we'd had to do was drive past it. So why is this important, you might ask? What is useful about this? And so this last year I was in West Greenland. This glacier is in Hamburgersund, near Maniitsoq. And I'd been to this glacier before, but I was really confused because it didn't really look very familiar. So I went back in my phone and I found a photo of the same glacier. This photo's taken 5 years previously. And as you can see, things have changed quite a lot. There's now a lake that's 2 miles in front, stretching from the moraine at the front of the glacier up to the glacier face. And if we go back, you can also see the medial moraine, which is the bit that looks like a road down the middle. It's where 2 glaciers come together like this, and the edges end up as the middle. You can see the entire right-hand curve at the bottom is now missing. This glacier has receded this far in 5 years. As I move through the Arctic, I see the most amazing and incredible things. Things that scientists would desperately love to document, to study. Did you know that every single whale tail is like a whale's signature? This whale is in front of the ice in Ilulissat. And every single white patch on his tail flukes and on his fins, the shape of the hump on his back of his fin, and the callosities on his neck, they're all his fingerprint. And you can, and this is one of my favorite parts of citizen science, you can take your photo of your whale and you can go to a website called Happy Whale. And when you go on the website Happy Whale, you can upload your whale photo and it will match your whale to a whale that's in their database or create a new image. I've seen a lot of owners that go and want to visit these amazing places, but they're not quite sure why they want to go. And they're not quite sure how they justify going. And I've also seen the amazing sense of purpose that it gives them when they have a mission. And that mission can be something active, like Nansen Explorer, which gave the opportunity to get permits to places, the hot springs, the fjords in East Greenland, that we would never have had a chance to go if we had not been doing science work. But it can also be passive. And that can mean fitting equipment on your yacht, which automatically sends data back to a science base. And we'll hear a little bit about that later from Matt, who will talk to you a little bit about Seabed 2030, which is also an amazing project. So this looks like the least interesting slide in my entire presentation, but it's probably the most important, because this is permafrost slump in the Northwest Passage. And when I first went in 2019, I didn't really see many of these landslides along the Northwest Passage. But in the year 2023, which this image is from, it was a particularly hot summer. In fact, actually, when we left Svalbard, it was 24 degrees in Svalbard, which is unheard of. And this means that the permafrost, which has been frozen since the last ice age, is thawing. And this is something that we desperately need to document. And so people used to ask me, Maiwenn, what do you think about climate change? And I used to say, I don't really know much about climate change. I'm not a scientist. I don't have documentation. I don't really have an opinion. I probably shouldn't have an opinion. But now what I say is, we desperately, desperately need to get these information to scientists who can formulate an opinion. So when I'm asked, how do you create the most amazing experience in the Arctic for the owner of a yacht? My answer has to be, we can take our yachting from being tourism, and we We can become the observers. We can be the witnesses. Thank you very much.
If you do identify a whale that hasn't been identified before, do you get to name it?
That is a really good question. I'm not sure of the answer to that question. I know they issue them numbers, and I believe most of them are numbered rather than named.
Okay, not the answer I was hoping for, but...
Sorry.
I think we should have the Straits of Beadle. When are you going back?
I'm actually going back in a couple of months. I'm taking a 60-metre sailboat up to East Greenland.
A sailboat? Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
See you after.
Yes. Yes.
Have you got the mic over there?
Hi, Maiwenn.
Hi.
Dominic over here.
Hi, Dominic.
Hi. When you said that you were pushing the ice forward to not damage your equipment,
Yes.
could you explain that a bit better?
It's more that we parked the boat with a large piece of ice across the front so that ice flow down, so the small chunks of ice which would normally be moving down the side of the boat all get stopped by the big piece that's across the front. And so while we're putting the wire down with the core sample, the smaller pieces don't interfere in the same way with the wire going down.
Okay, thank you, super.
Okay, so single screw DP, no DP.
No DP.
That must be quite a challenge.
It is quite a challenge. I mean, we did have a bow thruster and a stern thruster, so that helped us hold station.
Right.
But she was a challenging boat. I think there is no doubt that she was a very challenging boat to drive. She was actually built as a research vessel. She was the governor of Norway's vessel for a little while, and then converted into a yacht. But sort of halfway between a yacht and a research vessel.
Right. What sort of passenger capacity? Scientists?
Passenger capacity, the cargo vessel, so 12 plus supernumeraries.
Right.
So we had a few supernumeraries on that trip.
Wow. Okay. Excellent. I think
So, quick question. I mean, notwithstanding, this is all amazing stuff with respect to trying to involve boats, yachts, ships, and getting more science up and running. How is taken from a super yacht perspective? How do we, in your opinion, encourage more of the team, more of the fleet to get on board with what you're talking about? Because there's no doubt it all makes sense, there's no doubt it's all great stuff. But how do we, as an industry, encourage, the sponsors of our industry, the ultra net worths that keep us all here, to embrace this and take it to the next step, in your opinion?
In my opinion, we show them the amazing things that can happen if they do, and we show them that it doesn't have to be invasive in what they want to do with their yacht. It can be whatever they want. So the principal that took this charter with Nansen Explorer gained so much from having scientists sitting around at the dinner table having these amazing conversations. She gained so much from the permits that we did receive that we would not have received as a private yacht. So she had access to places that we would not have been able to go if we had been just a private yacht. And I think, by showing people that it can be that, but it can also be as small as having, as sharing your data, sharing your whale photos, sharing your depth soundings, sharing your water temperatures. All of these things can help with science and not have any effect on the yacht. So it can be, the help is a really wide spectrum. It can be just fitting one small thing on your boat, fitting the pads to put a container and being able to go and do a project for Yachts for Science, for example. Or it can be completely immersive, where you have an owner on board who is completely integrated with the science and the scientists on board, and that becomes what they want to do. So it depends. I think it very much depends what your owner wants, and it's a question of educating people that these are options. These are things that you can do if you want.
Last question, if I may. We're running out of time, but I don't care.
I've got all afternoon.
Did you get any pushback from the Inuit local population at all about being a super yacht, per se, there?
I think we were very fortunate in that the vessel that I took through the Northwest Passage didn't really look like a super yacht. It looked like a tug.
Yeah.
It actually wasn't Nansen Explorer, it was a different vessel, although I've been up there with Nansen Explorer too. So the boat that I took all the way through looked like a commercial tug. And I think that was a help. It is really important to reach out to the communities to make sure that there's an understanding. I actually personally make a point of whenever we get to a community, I go ashore and I go to the town hall or the hamlet office and I introduce myself to the leader of the town mayor, basically, and we have a conversation and we make sure that we understand what it is that they want to see from us and how we don't impose on their systems, their beliefs, where they want to hunt. It's very controversial, the whole balance between hunting and ecology, and that's something that you need to be very sensitive on in that area, particularly with the Inuit communities.
Particularly if you had a bright red spaceship-looking 65-metre super yacht.
Yeah, I mean, clearly I have been up there on a few big white shiny boats, and it definitely, it's a slightly different challenge, and the conversations just need to be more. I think, if you invite people on board, if that's a possibility, or if you have an exchange with them in some way, then this makes a really big difference.
And not just there, everywhere. Well,
yeah.
Maiwenn, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Really interesting.